gathered here tonight seeking your favor as we conduct business in the town. We ask that you continue to be with our first responders. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would you guys like chairs? It's just us here.
To pull them up.
We got a folding
chairs
up.
You want some chairs over there?
Yeah, just put two by the folding.
I'm about to say the gray ones.
Oh, good. You have one here?
Yeah, I just feel terrible with people standing. We can bring you guys a chair. Okay.
Where y'all want them at?
Right.
Yeah.
Wherever they
Makes you feel like you're in the hot seat now.
I'm about to say, how did you want to do the?
The mic.
Okay,
Mine?
yeah.
Oh, okay, oh, wow.
Yeah, we better make it like
Yes,
Thank you.
you're up.
So I've just asked Mayor Anthony to meet with the audit committee because I wanted to give an update on where we are with the audit. We're, as you know,
Okay, just so Robin can hear you too.
yeah, right. So I asked to speak to the audit committee just to give you an update on where we are with the audit. As you know, we waived the requirement for fiscal year 2021 audit. That is for the audit of the basic financial statements. Now, if the town had expended a certain amount of money in federal and state awards, then there would be a, what's called the single audit required. But you all didn't meet that threshold in 2021. But in 2021, you did have a scope of work approved by FEMA for some work that needed to be done related to Hurricane Florence. So this is something that occurred, I think was in 2018, that FEMA has agreed to reimburse the town for expenditures related to repairs for that hurricane. That scope of work was approved in fiscal year 2021, and some expenditures were submitted to FEMA to be reimbursed, almost $800,000 worth of expenditures. And that was reimbursed in 2022. So we spoke to DPS, who is the state agency that disperses those funds for FEMA, and they requested that we make sure that there's something called a schedule of federal and schedule of expenditures of federal and state awards, I think is what it is, a CISA. And if we would put together that report for them and then also do a program-specific audit on these FEMA expenditures so that they can have some assurance that the expenditures that were submitted were allowable under the scope of work that was approved. So that's going to be done by Cherry Beckert as well, and that's separate from the audit of the basic financial statements. And it doesn't really have to be done in order for this request that we've made to FEMA to happen, but it couldn't hurt. We have had to request of FEMA an extension of the deadline to spend those funds that were approved in the scope of work. All that work was supposed to have been done by 2020 or 2021, I think. So we've had to ask for an extension, and we have not heard back from FEMA. So we need to make sure that there's about $6 million left. So we need to make sure that they've got every bit of information that could assist in making a decision on that request. We also we'll be asking, or your Public Works Department will be asking for a change in the scope of work. And that may have already been submitted. Do you know, Tiffany, that change? Okay.
So wait, just for clarification, you said this $6 million is coming back to
to the town from FEMA?
It would be reimbursed to the town. The town has to spend the money and then get
But
reimbursed.
they've only reimbursed 800,000.
Right, they've only 800,000 of expenditures have been submitted. I'm not aware if there have been more expenditures related to that, but they all would have happened. The last time anything was submitted to FEMA was August of 2021.
So there's 8 or 6 million more
Right,
dollars
right.
that we can spend. to
Right,
reimburse.
but it's on very specific things. It's approved to be spent on these very specific things, which sort of relates to the DEQ report that Jason received a couple of weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and that outlines some things that had been done, things that still needed to be done, and also some routine maintenance things that need to be taken care of that don't fall under the scope of FEMA. But that's Jason's to make you all aware of that stuff.
How long should the extension be? Because, I mean, $6 million is a lot to spend.
Yeah, I am not aware how long we asked, what was asked for.
The initial extension was until, it's either June or July of 2024. So what we're doing is going back to FEMA to see if we can get another extension passed, at least until that June 2024 or July, it's either June or July. And then we have to submit the scope of work, and that scope of work has to be approved. The change in the scope of work has to be approved. And once that's approved, then we can ask for extension based on that scope of work.
Thank you.
So, I have a question. So, I'm almost sure I remember this money, and a lot of it had to do with the hurricane, correct?
Right, yes, it all was related to the
So
hurricane.
we had different choices to make in the amount of money we would receive, right? It was, if you go this route, you get this much, if you go this route, you get that much.
Right, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so, and then, well, that was, we got the money during COVID, then if we had it, we got it in, did we get it in 18, did you say?
No, I think the hurricane happened in 18. The
Okay.
scope of work was approved in 2021.
Right, so that was during COVID, and we also were taken over by the LGC, just trying to lay the foundation of the timeline.
Right,
What I
right.
remember, so what is our probability of getting, extension? Does anybody have any idea, have they said they're open to this extension? Do you know if that's?
DEQ is helping with that, but they have not heard from FEMA.
Okay.
They have gotten no response to that. So I'm hoping that, doing this program-specific compliance report is not dependent, one's not dependent on the other, but I hope that it can just assist in making things run smoothly. It's not an unreasonable request, and I don't know that we could really say no, but they've made that request. And then, as far as the audit of the basic financial statements, that work has begun, and they have a trial balance that they being Cherry Becker, that they can start using in their financial statement software to map things and start doing some testing. 2 areas that they have identified that are going to need, well, there's 3 areas that they've identified are gonna need some additional testing. Our payroll transactions will be heavily tested, to give them the assurance that they can issue an unmodified opinion. And that's the goal, is an unmodified opinion. And so there'll be lots of questions in regards to payroll transactions that happened in fiscal year 2022. And so I just needed you all to know, as with all 3 categories, that there will be lots of questions, so that you know that those questions are because of the audit, and so that you all know that would help us, support us in getting answers. The other category would be capital assets. That was an issue in the Office of State Auditor's report, so they're going to pay a lot of attention to your capital assets. And so that's going to require that there's a lot of work done in making sure that the list that is currently they have is accurate, that it is complete, it's accurate, if there's been any deletions, that they are accounted for properly, that we see how they came off books, and everything that's left on there, we'll have to know what's the location of it, and what condition it's in, and how it's used, if it's in use. So there'll be a lot of questions coming up with that, so. And then also, another category is gonna be the accounts receivable that are on the books right now. We asked Deborah a few months ago to pull, Deborah Mack, I'm sorry, from Greg Isley, to pull the balances on the accounts receivable, and those numbers were surprisingly high. That means there are a lot of accounts that are on the books that may be accurate or may not be, but right now it appears that there's over 200,000. Okay, so 200,000 in active customers receivable, and then 1 million in inactive customers that's sitting on the books.
Okay, that was my so perplexed. I'm so perplexed.
Sure.
You know, in receivables, you have what you call your DSO, where you try to, you know, bring that number down as low as possible. Has there never been anything, are you all pretty much saying that's never happened here in the town, or almost never?
It may have happened and just isn't being reflected in the books that, for the beginning of fiscal year 2022.
And so nobody at Greg Isley has been saying you all should write this off as bad debt?
Well, that's what we need to.
At this point, I mean, but I'm saying they've been here well over a year, and you're saying, are you saying they haven't started writing off the bad debt?
That we have to come up with a methodology to write off that bad debt and figure out what's bad debt, what doesn't belong on the books at all, and then we have to use that methodology moving forward. So we're gonna have to be doing a lot of research.
And it's hard to do that because of the 21 audit.
Right. So, you know, we can look at, so 2020 was audited. So we'll have that 2020 number, and then we'll have to look at how much of what's on there right now was added in 2021 that's not getting audited. And then we'll have to come up with some type of methodology that we can apply uniform and consistently going forward to write off. And that write-off will be reflected in your fiscal year 2022 statements.
So, is all this bad debt, is it all water bills? Is that what it is?
The majority of it is water bills, some of it is fire inspection fees that it appears were, you know, either not invoiced or not collected or something. We don't know exactly what's happening with that and why it's still sitting on the books. It may come to fruition that it never should have been on the books. We don't know. So that's why there's going to be a lot of questions around your water and sewer billing and fire inspection fees. So I just wanted to make sure that you all knew that and knew where we were coming from and asking those questions.
Do we know if the collection standpoint of it, when we're talking about revenue, is the responsibility of revenue or finance? I know they're one and the same for most part, but do we know who is responsible? Do we know that yet?
I do not know that. It depends on why it's sitting on the books. It could be because of journal entries that were made by finance and prior people that were taking care of finances. Or, you know, it could be sitting out there a high number because of the fraud. It could be part of that.
I remember
that issue.
I remember in December of 22 or 21 that we were told that there was a high number of bad debt on the books, and they were trying to work out a plan at that time.
Yes, so that was a request, what you're talking about. We found that out in November, or it came to our attention and asked. But I don't think that it's risen to the level of being able to be researched yet. So I'm going to have to ask a lot of questions of your manager, of your billing staff, and so I just kind of need your support in getting complete and accurate and well-researched answers. Because that would mean that the auditor needs that in order to give an unmodified opinion. I'm sorry, Alderman Cooper. What would you
No,
like
I'm
to add?
just, should this not have been, what, did this show up in any of our old audits?
I don't recall seeing anything about an unusual amount of accounts receivable. So that could mean that it all happened in fiscal year 2021. But I don't know. So, and you know, in the majority of that, so it was a total of what, about 1.4 million in accounts receivable? And the majority of that is over 91 days, the majority of it, or? Okay, yeah, so, it's not something that happened in this fiscal year. So hopefully we can do some research and find that it's not happened, it was in the past.
So
Far in the past.
what you have, what you're looking at, it doesn't let you know how old it is past 90 days, like 120, 360, it just doesn't.
Yeah, it only goes up to 90, but we can pull the data and then do some research on it
Okay.
to figure out how old it is.
But that's what you're about to start.
Right, right. And so there will be probably some accounts that we find that are high balances and have not been paid and should have been paid, and we'll have to do some research as to why they haven't been paid. It could have to do with write-offs that, where people had bad bills. There could be some of that. There's not 1.4 million worth, but some of it could be that.
Well, if we don't have a standard practice of collecting or writing that money off, then yeah, we're gonna have that issue. I remember, for some reason, 185,000 was the number we were given December 21, when we were initially told that, and we asked the questions about what is our process, and we didn't know yet, we didn't have an answer as to what the process was.
But I do think during that time, they were still trying to determine if the 2021 was even going to be audited.
Yeah, but as a matter of practice for the town, you know that you're gonna have write-offs and bad debt. What is the process for, the town when that happens?
Right, you're right, you're absolutely right, as a routine basis.
Yeah. Your finance director should be reading that information.
Right, right, and you've had a string of having a third party in here who's trying to clean up a lot of stuff. And so it just becomes a matter of which fire do you put out first? And that's where we are. And right now, because of the audit, this is the fire that we have to put out.
So prior to 2021, did we have some practices in place for collection?
I don't know.
Okay.
To come up to 1.4 million in accounts receivable, I don't think so. So, and that, the unfortunate thing is that no matter how much we write off, it's gonna be run through the books for fiscal year 2022. At least it won't be in 23 or 24, but that's what we've gotta get it established what it is. So, those are the challenges that I wanted to update you all on getting this audit taken care of. So, program-specific audit on FEMA, capital assets questions, accounts receivables questions. Was there anything else?
I'll have to make a correction. The 1.17 million is the total for all the customers. The inactive customers, the amount is 963,000.
Okay, so we have 1.17
Yes.
million in active accounts, and
That's
inactive.
in all of the customers' accounts, so that's the total.
Inactive and, 1.7 million in total accounts and
Or, I thought you said
1.17.
1.17, sorry, that's what I wrote down, 1.17 in total accounts, and then
It's 963,000 in active customers. And I'm not sure how the active customers have so much, but it's 214,000.
214 for active.
So, you're saying you're gonna write it off? Are you saying you're saying that it's gotta be written off?
Maybe,
Oh.
maybe.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we can write it
How much
off,
of it?
but still try to collect, right?
Those that are eligible for debt set-off, we'd have to do whatever we can for that. So we might still collect some of that total 1.17 million. But right now, it looks like the majority of it, 900,000 of it is inactive customers. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, once we figure out what's the real number, not to say real is not, we're comfortable with an accurate number, then we can go ahead and get in place a method to try and make some collections on those things. But anything that is determined as not being accurate or is something that there's no way we're ever gonna be able to collect, then that is the amount that will run through fiscal year 22's books. So we can get those, go ahead.
214,000 active accounts that are currently due to the town.
Mhm.
And that number is coming from 2021.
Actually, that was the number as of,
11/13/2023.
so it may be lower for 2022.
11/13, 2023, you say? So are you saying, so I'm confused, $214,000 in active customers, are these past due amounts or just, I don't know.
These are possible payment plans, these are, because there were a lot of, I know during COVID, there were a lot of, there was a lot of leniency. But that's obviously a big number, and we don't know anything about the practices of our finance or revenue departments or.
So these are from sewer, water, miscellaneous, I don't know what that is.
Just not fast.
Online convenience fee, cutoff, late fees, overpayments, demand charges, and sales tax. Well, demand charges and sales tax don't have anything. But I don't know what the miscellaneous is.
Did we determine that was the fire inspection, or is that a separate
I think it was.
report? I think that's fire inspection.
That's the current, where the current charges are at.
So is that something different from where you said the bad debt with the water bills and fire inspection, and then the stuff that you just said, the online fee, the sewer, water, miscellaneous, that's something totally different?
That makes up the water part.
Gotcha. Okay.
Miscellaneous probably is the fire inspection, and then the others make up the water part. So, that was really what I just wanted to brief you guys on and make sure that you understood.
So what do you need us to do, other than making sure that you get this information, make sure that the books are wide open for you to ask questions? How else can we assist with making this go smoothly?
That's gonna be the main thing, is to making sure that, that we have your support and getting answers to the questions, and your understanding that these questions all stem from getting an unmodified opinion on the audit report. That's where we're coming from.
And you need, who will you need, to help you with that access? Cause I know we can't, well, but I'm
Right,
just saying,
right.
who's
Yeah.
support will you need?
Right, a lot of these answers are gonna come from your interim town manager, they're gonna come from your revenue supervisor, they're probably gonna come from your public works. It's gonna be a group effort in with those people.
The additional testing, I know that most of that's due because of the audit, that we had gotten, and also it's been a couple of years since we've had an audit completed, a financial audit completed. So, let's see. How long of a process are we looking at overall for this audit with the additional testing having to be done?
It depends on the results of the preliminary testing.
Yeah.
As they test, if they find that there are issues, then they have to dig deeper, depending on how much digging will give them a comfort level to issue an unmodified opinion.
A normal audit takes how long?
Normal audit would be able to be done probably in 4 months. It might be 6 months before, could be longer than that, but.
And this is just to get us to 2022's audit.
Mhm.
And then 23, what's being discussed about that, or is there a plan in place for 23's audit?
I think 23 will go much smoother. There'll be less testing that has to be done on things. There will be still some additional payroll testing in that year because of certain transactions, but it shouldn't be anywhere close to the level of testing that has to be done for 22.
Okay, so is Becker doing that one too? Have we gotten a commitment on that?
We have an audit contract for 22. I'm not positive, I'll have to look and see if that is a multi-year contract. I
I
don't
thought it
know.
was.
Do you think so?
I
Okay.
thought that when we were first talking about, getting Jerry Becker's firm, that we were
Right.
looking at doing 22 and 23.
Normally, it's about a 3-year contract. That helps them have some economy of scale for doing their contracts. That doesn't mean that you're obligated to them. If they do 22 and you're not happy, then you're not obligated for the next year, but you usually get some savings if they do it year after year.
Did we get a cost estimate of what we're expecting for the audit? I know that we were expecting higher because of the extra testing.
Right, the audit contract right now stands at about 41, I think it's 41,000. You round up, there's 45
For 1 year?
for 1 year.
Because originally it was 16, in the budget it was 16.
There's 45,000, Deborah Mack told me, in the budget for the
For 1
audit.
year.
So,
For
but that's what we budgeted, that's not what we're projecting to spend, is it?
41 she just said.
41 is what the audit contract is for.
Just for the 1
And
year.
then,
1 year.
and then there will be the program compliance.
And that's an
And that's an additional fee. So there may need to be a budget amendment in order
What's
to
the program
accommodate.
compliance?
Pardon?
That's the additional testing.
Oh, okay.
Well, no, it's the, for the FEMA money,
Oh.
to make sure that everything that's
Audit
been,
the
The first
expenditures.
part of the
Yeah.
audit.
yeah.
And when you said, going back to the FEMA, when you said an audit for FEMA expenditures, that was for 21?
They were expenditures that were made from, I think what was filed with them was from 2018 through 2021. It was filed in 2021 and reimbursed in 2022. So that's why FEMA wants some work done in 2022, is because they reimbursed it, something that was approved or much earlier.
I'm so confused. When we were looking at the budget, it said 16,000 for the audit. So I'm trying to understand, how did we go from 16 to 41? I just, we've been told we should be better stewards of our money and we should pay attention to what we're spending. So when I'm sitting here, and you're telling me it's 41, when I know in the budget it was 16, how do we explain that?
I'm not sure what the 16 was based on. Maybe that was based on the prior audits that were done. Was it S. Preston Douglas that did the prior audits? That may have been what it was based on. But when you've got the level of fraud and you're skipping a year because all they'd be able to do is give you a disclaim and opinion, then it's gonna cost you more. Plus, you didn't pay for anything for fiscal year 2021. So, and in some ways they're giving you some work related to fiscal year 2021 because they have to get some comfort level with those beginning balances. But to your question, your specific question of how did it go in the budget from 16 to the 45, almost 46 that Deborah told me, I'll research that and let you know. I'll get that answer.
46 or 41?
Well, it's 46 is what's in the budget, 41 what is on the contract with Cherry Becker.
Right, and I mean, I understand that this is a unique situation. I just need to know, are we going to have to continue to pay this type of money when I know for a fact, municipalities, are not paying that, if they were, nobody would get out of it. So I know we're in a unique situation right now, but the cities and towns of our size are not paying that. I look at other cities and towns' budgets all the time, and they're not paying nowhere near that for audit.
We have to approve all the audit contracts for units of local government in North Carolina, and units of local government about your size are paying at least $25,000 to $30,000 for audits. Yeah, the fees range from $7,000 for a unit of local government with a population of 700 in a general fund to, I just saw a contract come through for $125,000 for a town the size, I want to say they have a population about 1,500, but they had a major fraud.
Yeah, okay.
So the audit contract costs, my guesstimate is that it's gonna cost them probably 10% of their annual budget for their audit because of the fraud.
It's that additional work they've gotta do for us. That's a significant jump.
Yeah, it is. And so, it behooves me to ask the question of Cherry Beckert is, what do you think the fee will be for fiscal year 23, for fiscal year 24, so that Deborah Mack can put together that number in the next year's budget?
Yeah.
So,
It should be cheaper than the additional fraud.
right.
Not yet.
Don't say yet. Very bad.
Okay, so have I answered your question?
Any other questions?
Any information you need? Okay. Well, that was all I had on my agenda to talk to you about. That was all.
There are no other questions from the board. I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting.